Imagine being able to reach another human being clearly, reliably, and directly across thousands of miles. No internet, no cell towers, no satellites. Just your voice, a piece of equipment, and invisible energy moving through the air. It sounds impossible, and yet people do this every single day. Welcome to the world of amateur radio, a space where science, skill, and human communication intersect in a way that's becoming rare in the modern world. Today we're going to explore what amateur radio really is, how it works, why it still matters, and why, even in the age of streaming and instant messaging, it remains one of the purest forms of communication ever invented. But first, we should probably clear something up. Before we go anywhere, let's address the most common misconception of all time. No, amateur radio has nothing to do with ham. No cans, no sandwiches.
This is delicious.
No pigs were harmed in the making of radio contacts.
No more ham jokes, okay?
The word ham comes from earlier slang used to describe amateur operators, people who weren't professionals but who were deeply passionate about learning how communication actually works. And that's a theme you'll hear again and again in this world: curiosity, craftsmanship, and connection. So what is amateur radio? At its core, ham radio, amateur radio, is a communication service and a technical hobby that allows people to transmit voice, text, images, and data, sometimes across a neighborhood, sometimes across continents, and sometimes even into space. Yes, space. Under the right conditions, amateur operators can speak directly with astronauts aboard the International Space Station. But what makes this special isn't just the distance, it's the directness. When you speak into a radio microphone, your voice is converted into electrical energy, transformed into radio waves, and launched into the air through an antenna. Those waves travel at the speed of light until another person, somewhere else in the world, receives them and hears you. No algorithm decides who gets heard. No platform boosts or buries your message. It's just physics and skill. Think of the radio spectrum as a vast highway system made up of invisible lanes called frequencies. Amateur radio operators are licensed to use specific portions of that spectrum known as bands. Some bands allow signals to travel locally, others can reflect off the Earth's ionosphere and curve around the planet. Understanding how and when to use each band is part science, part experience, and part art. What most people don't realize is that amateur radio has quietly achieved things that even modern networks still struggle with. For example, radio operators have communicated across oceans using less power than a nightlight, sometimes just a few milliwatts, by understanding timing, propagation, and signal discipline. That's not brute force, that's skill. There is also a phenomenon called sporadic e-propagation, where signals suddenly travel hundreds or thousands of miles on frequencies that normally shouldn't go anywhere at all. It can turn a local band into a global one without warning and then vanish just as fast. And perhaps most surprising of all, during solar storms that disrupt satellites and GPS, amateur radio sometimes improves. The same solar activity that breaks modern systems can supercharge the ionosphere, rewarding those who know how to work with nature instead of against it. To operate legally, you'll need a license. That involves a straightforward exam that teaches you the fundamentals of radio, safety, and good operating practice. Once licensed, you receive a call sign, your unique on-air identity. It's more than a formality. It's a signal that you know how to communicate responsibly, clearly, and respectfully. And that matters more than people realize. Because amateur radio isn't just about technology, it's about how people communicate. Some operators chase distant contacts, known as DX, pushing their skills and equipment to reach the farthest corners of the globe. Others prefer local conversations, building familiarity and trust with voices they hear regularly. Repeaters extend the reach even further, powerful relay stations that take a signal and rebroadcast it, allowing simple handheld radios to communicate across entire regions. Then there are the extremes. Moonbounce communication involves aiming a signal at the moon, letting it reflect off the lunar surface and receiving it back on Earth. It's one of the most extraordinary demonstrations of what disciplined communication and engineering can achieve. Amateur satellites do something similar. Acting as orbiting relay stations, they briefly connect operators hundreds or thousands of miles apart as they pass overhead. But perhaps the most important role amateur radio plays is one most people never think about until they need it. When disasters knock out power, internet and phone networks, amateur radio often remains. Trained operators step in to pass critical information between emergency services, shelters and communities. In those moments, clarity matters, calm matters, knowing how to speak and how to listen matters. And this is where amateur radio quietly teaches something deeper. It trains people to communicate with intention, to speak clearly, to respect airtime, and to listen before transmitting. Beyond emergencies, the culture itself is rich and human. Operators exchange QSL cards, physical confirmation of an on-air contact, a reminder that behind every signal is a real person. Morse code, despite its age, is still widely used because of its efficiency and resilience under poor conditions. Digital modes allow text, data, and even images to be sent over radio waves alone. Modern tools layered on timeless principles. There are contests, outdoor operating events, mountaintop activations, and quiet late-night conversations between people who may never meet, but who recognize each other instantly by voice, cadence, and call sign. Getting started doesn't require a massive investment. Many people begin with the simple handheld radio, learning the rhythms of communication before expanding into mobile or home stations. Others explore software-defined radios, where signal processing happens on a computer screen. What matters most isn't the equipment, it's the understanding. Amateur radio is a technical skill, a scientific playground, and a human communication discipline all rolled into one. And while technology continues to change, the core challenge remains the same. Can you make yourself understood clearly, respectfully, and effectively using only your voice and your knowledge? That's why amateur radio, ham radio, hasn't disappeared, and that's why it never will. If this exploration surprised you, let me know in the comments. And if you're curious about communication, not just the technology, but the craft, consider subscribing. Until next time, 73 and happy transmitting.
Right now I'm QTH in my comfy chair, but I'm getting a lot of QRM, so it's a big 73 to everyone. CQ. This is Alpha Bravo Charlie 1 Delta, calling for anyone, anywhere.